Now on Fox 13 News at 9, two major wildfires are burning tonight in southern Utah.
We're tracking the growth of both of those big fires and what wind conditions are going to do over the next 24 hours.
We're live in Marysville with the latest on the Silver King fire, how local businesses have been impacted.
Fire concerns and a lot of heat in the forecast for this week. We'll talk about when we could potentially see all-time records falling here across the state. Plus, do we have any storms on the horizon?
One of the women accusing Tim Ballard of sexual assault now says she has new evidence linking his DNA to the crime.
A new study and an alarming discovery about the Great Salt Lake. You know about lake effect snow. Tonight, learn about lake effect drought.
Live from Utah's news leader, Fox 13 News at 9 starts right now.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Bob Evans.
And I'm Kelly Chapman. We are continuing to keep a very close eye on two massive wildfires burning in southern Utah tonight. In Piute County, lightning started the Silver King fire on Friday. It doubled in size overnight to 10,823 acres. It is 0% contained and is burning in what crews call horrible terrain, steep canyons that go straight up and down.
But now the Deer Springs fire in Kane County has exploded to 11,000 acres after it started yesterday afternoon. It appears to be human caused, but that is still under investigation. And there are structures threatened in this blaze.
We do have live team coverage for you tonight. Utah's Weather Authority Allison Krogan is watching as the winds are now picking up and humidity is dropping.
And Fox 13 News reporter Darian DeBrule is live in Marysville watching the Silver King fire. But we begin with Fox 13 News reporter Spencer Joseph, who's been keeping an eye on how these fires are spreading. Spencer.
Yeah, good evening to you both. And these are the two fires that we were watching, the Silver King fire up north and the Deer Springs fire down south. The one kind of in the middle, this extraneous one here, is left over from the Little Twist fire. That is under, at least has some containment on it. So it is these two that we are watching. So let's take a look at specifically the Deer Springs fire as the one that is now the bigger of the two fires. So here you can kind of see the fire's footprint, and where firefighters are really concerned is this northern flank. The wind is pushing the fire to the south, so favorable wind conditions today. And if I give you a little bit better hour by hour look, those red dots are really the areas where we've seen the latest heat in the last couple of hours. So that's good. As that wind conditions are favorable, firefighters were able to get some containment, at least some lines around the northern part of this fire. It is still 0% contained, but they were able to get some better lines around the front of this fire to the north, to where if the winds switch back to the north, then the communities above the Deer Springs fire will be protected. Up north on the Silver King fire, you can see kind of on all edges of this fire, those red dots that show those heat areas. But the area of concern is especially near Bullion Canyon. That's this area right here, and you can see those red spots right at the end of the canyon. And somebody that can actually see that with their eyes is Fox 13 News reporter Darian DeBrule. She's been in Marysville throughout the evening and joins us live. Darian, I could see those flames behind you that we can see on the map here. What are conditions like out there?
Hey Spencer, yeah, as the sun has started to go down, we're really getting a better look at those flames that you can see are burning up the mountainside. As far as containment, officials tell me this fire is still at 0% containment as conditions are still too unstable. They're expecting to have an update on acreage tomorrow morning after they're able to do an overnight scan. But what we do know is the fire has burned over 10,000 acres. This evening, I spoke with local businesses here in Marysville about how the fire is impacting them. The town of Marysville is best known for its great trail system and even better people.
We just have a great time. It's great. The people here are fabulous. You know, the trails are great.
Which is why Joe Alonge has been coming here for summer ATV riding since '06. This year marks his 10th year straight.
Last year when we were here, I put 1,750 miles on my side-by-side. That's more miles than most people put on in a year.
But this year's trip has been a little different the past few days since the Silver King fire broke out.
When they told us they might have to have us evacuate or whatever, We were thinking of going down maybe like Circleville or something like that, because we paid to stay here till September 3rd. You know, go away when everything is fine. If the city didn't totally burn down, we would have come back. But we've stayed here, and we're not having any problem at all.
I think there was maybe 2 or 3 people that left because of the smoke from the fire, and we had a few cancellations, people calling in, being concerned about the fire, and so they canceled the reservation, but I don't think there's been very many.
Milo Medley's sons own Paiute ATV rental in Marysville. So far, they say the fire hasn't impacted business too much, but it did burn at least part of Milo's favorite trail.
If you go back 40 years, I used to ride that trail in my Land Cruiser, so I have a lot of memories back there. And then when it became the trail system, it's a narrow trail, and it's so pretty because you cross the creek about a half a dozen times and you're down in the trees.
Milo says summer and fall are the biggest time of year for businesses in town, and they want people to know they're still open.
The trail system and the RV parks, which there's 5 of them in town, are really important, I think, to the economy because it brings money into the area, and then money will bounce around through different vendors, different businesses through the time that they're here.
Joe and his group are set to be in Marysville for a total of 10 weeks. They're monitoring the fire closely, but as of right now, they say they plan to finish their trip in Marysville.
I think the way the fire is going now, with the wind still blowing that way, I don't think we're going to have a problem. Cross our fingers.
The federal government is sending help to fight this fire. FEMA is offering to pay up to 75% of the firefighting costs. Officials say crews will be on the ground tomorrow. They're expecting a little growth in the fire, but we're not expected to see that same jump that we saw Saturday into Sunday. Live in Marysville, Darian DeBrule, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Darian, thank you so much. So much in fighting fires. The weather plays a huge role, and we're headed into a really hot time.
We are, especially middle of this week, middle to end of this week. We're really going to see some hot temperatures here across the state. Well, let's go ahead and first start with tomorrow because we do have red flag warnings for central Utah. Everything highlighted in pink from about Richfield down through Cedar City, Zion National Park, over through Escalante. Noon tomorrow to 9 p.m. Any fires that start will spread rapidly. But here's the deal. Even though the entire state isn't under a red flag warning, please just use caution everywhere this week. It is going to be really hot the next couple of days. We're not only challenging daytime highs, we're also going to be challenging all-time records here in Salt Lake City and across the state. So with that being said, excessive heat warnings were issued this afternoon, and that'll kick into effect on Wednesday for the Wasatch Front and most of our valleys here across the state for Wednesday through Saturday. We're looking at 100 to 106. And then for southern Utah, we're looking at excessive heat warnings 110 to 115. And that is going to be now through Friday. So we have very hot temperatures expected over the next couple of days. Relative humidity is looking a little bit better than it was this afternoon. But as we head into the next few days, heat is going to be a really big priority. So make sure you're staying hydrated, taking breaks, trying to avoid being outdoors tomorrow between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. We'll talk more about what to expect over the next few days coming up in just a bit.
Thanks, Allison. The Utah Supreme Court has rejected a petition by Taborron Honey seeking to halt his execution. In an order obtained by Fox 13 News, Associate Chief Justice John Pierce says Honey has not shown a lower court abused its discretion in signing a death warrant. The state's top court also says Honey cannot use this as a vehicle to challenge capital punishment in general. Honey is scheduled to be executed by lethal injection next month for the 1998 murder of Claudia Ben in Cedar City. Honey is also asking the Utah Board of Pardons and Parole to commute his sentence to life in prison.
We have an update to a story Fox 13 News first reported on Friday. An intergovernmental group that has stewardship over the Wasatch Front Canyons is looking at ways to reduce congestion. Fox 13 News reported last week the group is considering timed entry reservations and shuttles in Mill Creek, Big, and Little Cottonwood Canyons. But the Central Wasatch Commission's Transportation Subcommittee is thinking maybe only on big ski days. But even then, stakeholders say what works for one canyon may not work for another. The group seems to prefer mass transit shuttles. So far, no decisions have been made.
A man was arrested after accidentally firing his gun while shopping at a local Walmart. Police say 26-year-old Zachary Hampton was in the self-checkout line at the supermarket in Richfield today when his gun went off. They said he appeared to have been adjusting the handgun inside his waistband. Police say Hampton was hit and injured by the shot but fled the scene. Police later took him into custody at a residence in town, and he was then hospitalized for his injuries. Nobody else was injured.
Above the city of Uinta in Weber County, there is a big U on the side of the mountain. You can see it for miles. But over the weekend, that U was changed to an H in honor of the family of Richard Hendrickson. He was the CEO and president of Lifetime Products, who died Saturday with his daughter Sally in a car accident in Ogden Canyon. A bulldozer came off the back of a tow truck and hit their SUV. Hendrickson's wife and two other of their children also suffered non-life-threatening injuries in that accident. The mayor of Uinta says the Hendricksons were beloved in their community. Richard was also an LDS stake president in the Ogden Pleasant Valley stake.
It's a pretty dark feeling over the community yesterday and today about the loss that we're realizing what we've lost and how great of people they were. They were just so supportive and so, Rich was the type of guy that always had a smile on his face, was always looking to lift up those that were down and try and help the downtrodden. Just a really nice family.
The lights will be left up throughout the week. The funeral for the Hendricksons will be on Saturday. Since the Hendricksons' deaths, a petition has been started to restrict what type of vehicles are allowed to travel through Ogden Canyon. The Change.org petition was started yesterday by Todd Karen and already has more than 2,000 signatures. Karen says the narrow two-lane road is flanked by the Ogden River on one side and steep mountain cliffs on the other, with little to no shoulder room in many areas. He says he's asking others to sign the petition to restrict large trucks and commercial vehicles from using Highway 39 to protect lives.
Spanish Fork welcomed the Tree of Life National EMS Memorial to Fire Station 62 today to honor those who died last year in the line of duty. The names of 36 first responders from all across the country were read aloud to bring awareness to their ultimate sacrifice. It is a moving honors tribute that will stop in 18 states, traveling about 4,800 miles all the way to Arlington, Virginia. Mountain Star Healthcare's Mountain View and Timpanogos Regional Hospitals, along with Air Life Utah, also took part in today's service to illustrate the collaboration it takes to save lives every day.
The Utah County Sheriff's Office will not discuss the criminal investigation of Tim Ballard, but one of his female accusers now says she has the update.
I'm Brian Champagne at Bear Lake. These boats have been inspected for invasive mussels. I'll tell you what they haven't been inspected for that just shut down a marina.
The Utah Jazz played their first Summer League game tonight. Which young stars shine the brightest? I'll show you coming up.
I was molested and sexually assaulted by Tim in 4 different states, 5 different countries, in the span of 10 months.
It started with a stain on an unwashed leather skirt, and now one of the women accusing Tim Ballard of sexual assault says the Utah State Crime Lab has a 100% DNA match. I'm Fox 13 investigative reporter Adam Herbets, and these are the new court documents just filed in one of the cases against Tim Ballard. He was the CEO of Operation Underground Railroad, an anti-human trafficking nonprofit. But he left that organization after multiple women came forward to accuse him of sexual misconduct. They say he tricked them into acting out sexual situations, claiming it was all part of an undercover technique to catch child sex predators. Now, one of those women used to be his executive assistant, Celeste Boris. She's filed a lawsuit and spoken with multiple police departments. And for months, she and other women have been releasing evidence, like dirty text messages with Ballard. Now she says the bodily fluid on her skirt will prove her story. Now, so far, the Utah County Sheriff's Office doesn't want to confirm or deny the DNA match to protect the active criminal investigation. But we asked Ballard's legal team if they had an explanation or if they thought the report was false. Instead of responding to those questions, they said the women and their attorneys are, quote, tainting an ongoing investigation, desperately trying to generate some PR. We'll wait for the court's judgment on their actions and for law enforcement to complete its investigation, if that's even possible now. Now, as part of their court filings, the women did attach text messages with that Utah County detective and a letter they sent to prosecutors. If you'd like to see that evidence, it is on the front page of our website, fox13now.com. Reporting in studio, Adam Herbetz, Fox 13 News, Utah.
President Biden insists he is staying in the race despite calls from some in his party to step aside after his poor debate performance. Today, the president sent a 2-page letter to congressional leaders calling for an end to the intra-party drama. President Biden insists he is still the best candidate to beat former President Trump in November. However, a New York Times Siena College poll from last week shows 60% of voters want a different candidate. Political insiders say that over the weekend, House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries held a call in which 4 more lawmakers privately said the president should step aside.
Hurricane Beryl made landfall in Houston early today as a Category 1 hurricane before being downgraded ultimately to a tropical depression. It is the first to make landfall in the U.S. this season, bringing flooding and even tornadoes with it. Authorities say at least 4 people have died as a result of the storm. 94-mile-an-hour wind gusts knocked out power to more than 3 million customers in Texas.
Here locally, our main weather story over the next couple of days will be extreme heat. Will be challenging not only daytime highs here in Utah, but also the potential to get to all-time records. Some of the hottest temperatures that we've ever seen here in Salt Lake will be getting close to that over the next couple of days. 85 right now, getting ready for bed on this Monday evening. Wind out of the west at 6 miles per hour. Here are your main weather headlines. We've got fire weather this week, especially for south central Utah. We've got a long duration heat wave bringing us extreme daytime highs and very warm overnight temperatures. And air quality, unfortunately, over the next couple of days will continue to be poor for our ozone and also for wildfire smoke. So hot and hazy for tomorrow. As we look at our surface smoke forecast, we're really going to keep the thickest smoke into southwest Utah through tomorrow at 8 a.m. And then we could even see some areas of smoke here in northern Utah from some fires burning off to our northwest. So we're going to continue over the next couple of days with areas of smoke here across the region with very hot temperatures, upper 90s tomorrow in Salt Lake. Air quality orange, unhealthy for sensitive groups. That means people with harder lung conditions, asthma, COPD. We do have very, unfortunately, poor air quality in the forecast over the next few days. Plus, we have excessive heat warnings. This does include the Wasatch Front Wednesday through Saturday. We're looking at temps 100 to 106 for most of our valleys here up north. And for southern Utah, we're going to have very hot temperatures now through Friday, 110 to about 115, maybe even getting closer to 116. And that all-time high we've ever seen here in Salt Lake, the all-time hottest temperature we've ever seen here in Utah is 117. We're going to be flirting with that in southern Utah towards the middle of this week. So right now across satellite and radar, it's dry out there. We're going to continue with more of the same for tomorrow as you wake up along the Wasatch Front. Upper 60s at 6 a.m. into the 70s at 8 a.m. and into the low to mid 80s by 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. So things are going to heat up pretty quickly. Salt Lake right now, live look from the Natural History Museum. Beautiful Great Salt Lake off in the distance. We've got our temperatures just hardly cooling off tonight, near 70 degrees. Overnight temps across the state tomorrow morning. We've got you to about 65 to 70 for much of Utah. And then for St. George tomorrow, 112 for a high, 113 on Wednesday, 114 on Thursday. Honestly, there's a chance we get to 115, 116 in some areas. And then we're going to keep it very hot even into early next week. So very warm temperatures in our extended forecast, all above average. 98 tomorrow in Salt Lake, and then we're triple digits Wednesday through Sunday, 100 to about 105, maybe even 106 on Saturday. We'll talk more about that coming up later in the hour.
Bear Lake is one of the clearest, most popular lakes in Utah. Excuse me. But that clarity is under threat now from an invasive plant species.
Today, Fox 13 News reporter Brian Champagne went out with the DNR crew to find out how bad the problem is.
This natural resources boat is taking off with a weed expert from Utah State University on board. They're looking for Eurasian water milfoil, which has been in Bear Lake about 4 years, but doesn't come to the surface to flower.
That means that the plant is not happy, it's not thriving, and we don't understand why.
And the problem with an unhappy weed?
The plant that's stressed cannot absorb the herbicide and be controlled by it.
So they're out on the water,
I think that's my buoy.
checking equipment that measures sunlight and temperature at various depths. And they're dragging the bottom in small marinas, also looking for curly-leaf pondweed.
It produces a lot of these turions, and each of these turions will sprout 3 to 4 times and start new plants.
Besides displacing the food and hiding sources for fish,
They can also change the nutrient cycle of the water, and by that they can cause harmful algal blooms at Bear Lake.
for people,
If your boat prop gets stuck in these invasive plants, it gets all tangled up and then it can't move. And obviously, worst case scenario is if it's in some of these marinas, if a kid were to fall in, they could get tangled up and they could drown.
And then the crew visited this small marina. These are piles of curly-leaf pondweed the operator has raked up.
She says it's been absolute hell trying to pull this out.
So DNR shut down the motorized craft in the marina.
Because the props will stir up all that vegetation, chop it up, and those fragments can establish new populations across the lake.
DNR and Ortiz know the in-season timing is lousy for business, but the growth cycle of the weeds and getting someone here to spray is controlling the schedule. Ortiz says, well, Utah has a plan to stop invasive mussels, and these boats get inspected for them. For plants, not as much. This is their little sign, and there's no inspection, even though Ortiz says it was probably a traveling boat that brought the weeds here.
There are studies showing that plants that stays in the moist areas of boats during transportation, they can stay alive for up to 90 days.
It's a big, beautiful lake that we want to make sure we preserve that blue, clear color.
Brian Champagne, Fox 13 News, Utah.
The U.S. Air Force changes course and will let Hill parents see video of their children allegedly being abused.
You've heard of lake effect snow, but a new study by Utah State University finds the Great Salt Lake can make lake effect drought.
After loading up on the defensive side, the Utah Hockey Club signed a forward today. I'll tell you who it is coming up.
Bottom line is the Pentagon does not have good policy when it comes to transparency.
A big change of course for the child abuse investigation Hill Air Force Base. I'm Fox 13 investigative reporter Nate Carlisle. For more than a year, we've been telling you how as many as 37 children may have been abused at the Hill Air Force Base daycare, called the Child Development Center. Last week, the base commander sent this email to parents, telling them that the investigation has reached a stage where they can start showing video of the alleged abuse to families. Previously, families had been told they could not see the video until the investigations were finished. And even then, the parents might have to file a request under the Freedom of Information Act.
I think it's progress that's probably been brought forth by a lot of pressure, either from the parents themselves and media coverage.
Steve Bainan is a reporter at military.com. He's been reporting on abuse at child development centers across the U.S. military.
On military daycares, they necessarily don't have to tell parents when their kids are abused or neglected or were hurt in any way. And when parents do find out about that, they face enormous hurdles to get just the most basic information. A year is way too long for parents to just get basic information on what happened to their kids.
A spokesman for the 75th Air Base Wing provided Fox 13 with a copy of the email, but otherwise declined to comment. The videos are from the Hill Child Development Center. While almost no parents of the 37 children have seen the footage thus far, investigators have relayed descriptions that have been shared with Fox 13. Those descriptions include kids, some of them infants, being picked up or put down harshly, sometimes by their limbs, with heads ricocheting off bedding.
I think it's pretty critical for parents to know, to the extent that it is known, exactly what was said or done to the child.
Philip Basie is a child and adolescent psychiatrist who spoke to Fox 13 in May.
What we know about adverse childhood events is that having one or more puts that child at risk throughout their lifetime for lots of issues, mental health issues and even physical health issues.
So far, no one has been charged with any crimes related to the abuse investigation. At Hill Air Force Base, Nate Carlisle, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Tomorrow, the Granite School District Board of Education is going to hold a special meeting to appoint a new superintendent.
The current, soon-to-be former superintendent, Dr. Richard Nye, is being released in order to take up the position of senior advisor for Governor Spencer Cox. The matter of his replacement will be taken up at 4:30 p.m. tomorrow.
Utah Republican gubernatorial candidate Phil Lyman is suing the lieutenant governor's office over signatures gathered by his political rival, incumbent Governor Spencer Cox. Lyman won the GOP nomination at the state party convention, but Governor Cox gathered signatures to earn a spot on the ballot and then went on to win the primary. Now the Lyman campaign wants to see the signature packets the Cox campaign gathered. The lieutenant governor's office produced a redacted version, which is a new law that Lyman actually voted for in the legislature. The canvass is tomorrow when ballots are certified around the states.
A Washington County judge has rejected Colby Jenkins' lawsuit against the county clerk over allegedly failing to release voter information on whose ballots have not yet been cured. Jenkins is challenging Representative Celeste Malloy in a tight Republican primary for Utah's 2nd Congressional District. Jenkins had called on County Clerk Ryan Sullivan to release the information of hundreds of voters whose ballots were not counted in the primary. Washington County replied, saying the lawsuit had lacked any legal basis.
A new study finds something rather alarming about the Great Salt Lake.
As the Great Salt Lake's water body is shrinking, that local precipitation caused by the storm event is going to decrease.
I'm Ben Winslow at the Great Salt Lake. A new study by scientists at Utah State University finds that a shrinking Great Salt Lake can actually exacerbate drought across the entire Wasatch Front.
That lake effect is getting weaker.
Dr. Wei Zhang is part of a team at Utah State University that did a study on the Great Salt Lake and precipitation.
As the Great Salt Lake shrinks, that local precipitation is going to decrease.
So it creates its own drought cycle?
Yes, so this is going to trigger kind of a negative feedback. As the water body decrease, then that precipitation is going to decrease in the Great Salt Lake Basin. And that will shrink the water body, and that water body will also decrease precipitation. It's like a negative feedback.
It's a negative feedback loop.
In general, if the lake goes from 100% to 0%, okay, in other words, it completely dries up, then there will be a 50% reduction in convective precipitation, primarily along the Wasatch Front, but southeast of the Great Salt Lake, in other words, Salt Lake City.
The Great Salt Lake can amplify winter storms. You've heard of lake effect snow. It helps create snowpack, which accounts for 95% of Utah's drinking water. This study shows that with a shrinking lake able to exacerbate drought.
I think it's really important to keep the water level in the Great Salt Lake in a healthy level, so that we could have more precipitation in the Great Salt Lake Basin, and to avoid triggering that negative feedback, that the shrinking water body could further reduce precipitation.
Environmental groups call the study's findings alarming. The Center for Biological Diversity says it underscores the urgency of the situation surrounding the Great Salt Lake and the need to get it to a healthy level quickly. The findings show the longer we wait, the harder it will be to save the lake and preserve the health of northern Utah, because precipitation will continue to diminish and it will continue to get worse. Dr. Robert Gillies is the state climatologist. With climate studies showing a trend toward hotter temperatures in Utah, the solution to avoid lake effect drought? Get more water into the lake.
We have to be much more careful in the way we use water, right? And our water resources. They are finite.
The Great Salt Lake has actually risen about 6.5 feet from its historic low in 2022 thanks to a pair of great winters. It is, however, several feet below what is considered the start of an ecologically healthy range. At the Great Salt Lake, Ben Winslow, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Still to come, we have details of a big party happening on the morning of Pioneer Day for all those anticipating a big Olympic announcement.
And the state has launched a brand new Office of Artificial Intelligence. Details on what it's supposed to do coming up. We are just a little more than 2 weeks away from finding out who will host the 2034 Winter Olympics.
What do you think, Bob?
I'm betting on Salt Lake City.
I think get your pom-poms ready. Salt Lake City certainly is the big favorite. And today we learned there will be a watch party in the early morning hours of Pioneer Day, July 24th. It's taking place at Washington Square downtown as officials with the IOC make, of course, their very big announcement.
So we're asking you to come bright and early right here to Washington Square, and we'll reward you with a parade later that morning on Pioneer Day. I cannot wait to see you all virtually from Paris. We will be live streaming. We are going to be looking for you. I'm hoping that you all will be posting. I'm looking for the best pajama outfit at 3 a.m. in red, white, and blue. I hope that that's out there.
We want to invite everybody out, know that it'll be safe, and everybody will have a great time.
That party starts at 3 a.m., so you better set your alarm or stay up.
Yeah, that's an all-nighter type of
No
party
kidding.
there, Bob.
But big pajama party. Mayor Aaron Mendenhall and other dignitaries will all be over in Paris doing their final presentation that morning. Now, Fox 13 News will be on the ground in Paris that day and have complete team coverage of this huge historic event.
Red, white, and blue pajamas, Bob. Get them ready.
Okay.
Today, after months of what they called an exploratory phase, the Utah Department of Commerce has launched the Office of Artificial Intelligence. It will shape new policies to guide the responsible use of AI for all Utahns.
But of course, we need tech, and we need it to work for us. So we wanted to make sure that we would have appropriate guardrails in place to enable that trust in technology.
The office will create recommendations to the legislature for regulating AI. Utah will join 11 other states with offices focused on artificial intelligence, including California, Colorado, and Montana.
Well, temperatures today pretty close to normal for this time of year, but things are really going to ramp up in the next couple of days when we could possibly set some all-time records here in Utah.
There's a big college football game between Utah and a team from Florida that will kick off the 2027 season in Las Vegas. And the Salt Lake City Summer League started tonight. The Jazz took on the Grizzlies, and boy, it was a competitive game down to the wire. The highlights are on the way.
Hello, Max Roth here. We expect higher temperatures, and it already has been a deceptively hot summer. In fact, this past June hit every part of Utah with extreme heat. We're going to take a north to south tour of June's heat with three big numbers.
These are the three big numbers: 5.5, 163, and 6.3. 5.5 tells us about Logan's month. 163 tells us about Salt Lake City's June, and 6.3 is about St. George. So let's go to Logan. Last month, the average daily temperature in Logan was 69.1 degrees. From 1991 to 2020, the normal average daily temperature was 63.6 degrees. So compare them. That's a 5.5 degree jump above the average. Now south to Salt Lake City, and let's talk air conditioning. When the average temperature is higher than 65 degrees, it's harder to keep your house temperature down. So each degree above 65 is called a cooling degree day. So if the average temperature for one day is 70, that's 5 cooling degree days for that one day. So last June, Salt Lake City racked up 397 cooling degree days. The normal number is 234 for Salt Lake in June. So the big number, residents in Salt Lake had 163 extra cooling degree days, 70% above normal. Now south to St. George. We're used to it being Utah's hot spot, but not this hot. In June, the average daily high temperature was 102.7. Now the normal is below 100, 96.4 to be exact. So St. George's big number, 6.3 degrees hotter at the height of the day in June. Also in June in Salt Lake City, normally we average 84 as a daily high, but this past June we averaged over 90. Now that difference impacts our power and water bills, our health, our fire danger, our air quality, all of it. In studio, Max Roth, Fox 13 News, Utah.
All great information. Thanks, Max. If you're looking for some cool temperatures right now, you don't have to look far. 58 degrees currently for Alta. Getting up into the mountains over the next couple of days will be quite the treat because we have a long duration heat wave that is ramping up midweek for northern Utah, and it's already very hot into southern Utah. St. George currently 102. So it is hot here across Utah over the next couple of days. Not too windy right now, but still noticeable wind with a wind gust of about 30 miles per hour for St. George and 20 miles per hour for Cedar City. But looking forward to overnight temperatures dropping into the 60s and 70s for most of Utah. Then as we look at the forecast for the next couple of days, high pressure continues to be our main weather impact, and this is going to continue to drive very hot temperatures not only through this weekend, but even into the early part of next week. So we've got a lot of heat on the way under mostly clear sky here across the region. As we look at the forecast for tomorrow and Futurecast, we'll keep the chance for some showers to pop up along the higher terrain heading into tomorrow afternoon and evening, mostly in our surrounding states, Nevada, Wyoming, and Colorado. But for us here in Utah, we're pretty much going to be keeping things dry. However, we head into this weekend and early next week, and eastern Utah, we might start to see some isolated showers returning later in the weekend into the early part of next week for Moab, but there's not a great chance, but there's a possibility of it. Temperatures tomorrow morning, 60 to about 70 degrees here across Utah. We'll drop into the 50s for the Cache Valley. That'll be nice. 50s for Evanston. 40s for Bryce Canyon. Going to enjoy those cool overnight temperatures, especially as firefighters are working to battle some fires here across the state. And then our temperatures rising tomorrow, close to 95 to 105 for much of the state. St. George closer to 110 to 115 for the next couple of days. And obviously the concern with the heat wave and several fires burning here across the state will be extreme temperatures, potentially leading to extreme fire behavior, but also just think about how difficult it is to be wearing all of that gear and working during daytime hours when it is dangerously hot outside. For St. George, the truth is you're close to 110, 115, maybe even 116 heading into the next couple of days. By Thursday, we are going to be getting close into record territory for all-time high temperatures. The hottest St. George has ever been and the hottest we've ever seen here in Utah is 117, and we're going to be into that territory heading into Thursday. This weekend, we'll see a little bit of a cool down Sunday and Monday, but look at that, it's still close to 105, so still very hot. And notice these overnight temperatures, 80 degrees. You can't open the window and cool the house off. That's why we're really concerned about our vulnerable populations over the next couple of days, because with temperatures like 100 to 105 for Salt Lake for the next 7 days and overnight temperatures in the mid 70s, people that don't have air conditioning or access to air conditioning, people who are elderly, young children, pets, people who are pregnant, those are all people who are especially vulnerable to these long duration heat waves. So if you're in that vulnerable population, please make sure you're checking with your city or county to see if there's a cooling center that you can go to if you don't have access to air conditioning. So stay safe over the next couple of days.
It's Summer League time for the Utah Jazz. It started tonight at the Salt Lake City Summer League with the Jazz playing the Memphis Grizzlies at Delta Center. Jazz have 3 rookies from last year on the roster and the 3 players they just drafted, including Kyle Filipowski. Spins here and dishes to Walker Kessler. Scores 2 of his 10 points. Bryce Sensabaugh came on strong at the end of last season. Boy, he can shoot it. Knocks down the 3. He had 15 points. Then Keontae George gets it to Cody Williams, the 10th overall pick of this year's draft. He scores it. He had 6 points in his first Summer League game. Boy, Scottie Pippen Jr. looked like he was playing for his NBA life guarding George, but he couldn't slow him down. Key for 3, and it's good. Then he points to the Grizzlies bench. They started talking some trash after George missed a three earlier in the game. Then he lit him up in the second quarter, drains another one. He had 30 points. Here's another Jazz rookie, Isaiah Collier, puts it up from long range. The late first-round pick is money from distance. Then in the second half, he drives and powers his way in for two. We finished with 14 points in his first NBA Summer League game. And how about this play? Kessler with the block, starts the fast break. Collier to Kenny Lofton Jr. Little showtime. He had 8 points for the Jazz. It was tight in the fourth quarter. Kessler blocks this shot by Zach Edey, but the big guy from Purdue put it back and throw it down. The Jazz then push it the other way. Collier to Taylor Hendricks, throws it down. He put the Jazz up by 1. He finished with 8 points. The Grizzlies needed a miracle tip-in at the end of the fourth quarter to tie it, and they got it from Edey, sending the game to overtime. But the Jazz won it in OT on this free throw from George. The Jazz won it 97-95 in overtime. Former Weber State star Dylan Jones played his first NBA Summer League game tonight. He was drafted by the Wizards with the 26th overall pick of the draft and traded to the Thunder. Nice bucket here is a three, his first one with the team. He had 9 points, 10 rebounds, 7 assists in the Grizzlies' loss to the 76ers. The Jazz play Jones and the Thunder tomorrow. The Utah Hockey Club announced they've signed forward Barrett Hayton to a 2-year contract extension worth $53 million, $5.3 million. There's a difference there. The Coyotes selected him with the 5th overall pick in the 2018 draft, and he scored 35 goals in his 5 seasons in the NHL. And the Utah football team will play the Miami Hurricanes for the first time ever in the 2027 Vegas Kickoff Classic at Allegiant Stadium. The game's set for Labor Day weekend in 2027.
I'm just looking forward to this season.
Yeah.
It's going to be a big one, first one of the Big 12.
Thank you so much, Jeff.
Thanks for joining us for Fox 13 News at 9.
Stick around, QuickCast is next.